The transfer portal is open. I've got the latest. This is Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday and welcome back to another episode of Locked On UConn. I am Matt Schonvisky, a two-time graduate, 10-year credentialed media member, and host of the only daily UConn sports podcast, Locked On UConn. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and thank you for making this your first listen each and every single day. On today's show, I'll update you on who is slated to leave UConn football. Then, Jason Candle and staff hosted a number of prospective football players this past weekend. I'll have the latest. And finally, the new staff is complete. We'll walk through the final additions. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So the transfer portal opened this past Friday. And my, oh my, 41 players are officially in the portal that called UConn home this past season. 41. Just on transfers alone. On top of that, there are 30, by my estimation, players who are graduating or have used up all of their eligibility. So add those two together, you're looking at least 71 new players on next year's football roster. So Candle and staff, they're already busy. They need to continue to stay busy in order to fill out this roster by the time training camp arrives. And they've already gotten a head start. On the next segment, we'll talk about the key pieces that we're in, who's made an announcement that they're coming, because that's already happened as well. But this first segment is focused on what is UConn losing from last year's roster. And it's substantial. It's 71 players. 71. Major key contributors. We know there are key pieces from last year's roster that will not be returning to UConn already. Portal opened Friday. Visits happened over the weekend. Commitments already made. The biggest piece already, you're starting left tackle Ben Morosky. Connecticut native, no less. Had interest from everybody. Had visits set up across a number of schools. Michigan State, Louisville, Florida State. He was generating a ton of buzz. Visited and committed to Michigan State yesterday. Brady Wayburn, another piece on the offensive line. Again, a number of offers. Oklahoma State, UCF. He visited UCF and committed to UCF yesterday. Your backup offensive left tackle, Torian Johnson, visited Colorado State, is not coming back, committed to Colorado State. So already, of the 41, 3 will not be coming back. This does not mean no other players that are in the portal will not be coming back to UConn. There could be an opportunity for some. I know some are considering. Some are looking actively and considering still coming back to UConn. Others are looking at the offers that they have and the visits that they have and the new staffs that they'd be a part of and saying, hey, these are better opportunities for me, my football playing career, and me as an individual and as a student athlete. Student athlete put on the back burner for a sec because clearly this entire college sports model has completely changed and has been turned on its head over the last several years. But already some players departing officially. There are others and many others who were visiting Colorado State this past weekend. Farrar, your starting quarterback in the bowl game, for one. Several others were as well. We mentioned Torian Johnson. He already committed. I know Cam Chadwick was down at TCU. Several others, I would not be shocked, would follow Coach Samus and several others to TCU because TCU not only took Gordon Samus, they've also taken Will Cox, who was your running backs coach. And there are several running backs in the portal from last year. And they've also brought in Brad Robbins, You might remember him. He was a quarterback's coach 2 years ago, reuniting with Samus. And that TCU offensive staff has a very, very familiar feel if you're a UConn football fan. So offensive players could be going to Price Tracy and Kashif Moore out in Colorado State. They could be going down to TCU, or like some of these others, Brady Wayburn and Ben Morosky, you could be finding new homes, and they already have. So you've got, just to run down the list, offensively, key contributors: Victor Rosa, John Niter, MJ Flowers, Morosky, Karsten Cassidy, another offensive lineman, Mel Brown, running back, offensive lineman Brady Wayburn, Cam Edwards at running back, of course, Juice Varini, tight end, Alex Honig, tight end, Nick Evers, quarterback, Jackson Harper, wide receiver, Tucker McDonald, quarterback, Torian Johnson, offensive lineman, Shamar Porter, wide receiver. The list goes on. Terrence Smith, wide receiver, Oliver Lundberg-Coleman, running back, and then Farrar, you starting quarterback against Army. Those are key pieces, key names, key backfills, should things have remained the same. So that's just on offense. Defense, you're losing Cam Chadwick, Diamande at linebacker, Cyrus Gilbert, another corner, Vincent Carroll Jackson, defensive lineman. He was also at Colorado State this past weekend. Lee Millette, safety. Stephon Wright, defensive lineman. Matt Hoffman, defensive lineman. So there's a number of players and key pieces that are in the portal. And UConn's got to listen. They're not alone. They're probably going to be one of the top teams in terms of roster turnover from each season ago. However, there are also, you know, the coaching carousel that played out this offseason. They're not alone in this situation by any stretch. But listen, 30 graduating and using up their eligibility and another 41. So that culture that's been here, that's completely going to be rebuilt. And Jason Candle will be, and has already started establishing the new culture that he wants this football program to have. And we'll talk more about that in the future as we get closer to spring football, as we start bringing in additional players. But UConn is not alone in this. So yes, players are out the door. Yes, players have committed elsewhere. But on the other side, players are also visiting UConn. Players are also committing to UConn. And we'll talk about that after the break. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour brings something new. Boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window, before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Back in on this first of two Monday editions of Locked On and UConn, and we are switching gears from key losses in the transfer portal and key roster turnover from this past season with UconnFootball to key additions. As Jason Candle and staff hosted at least 27 new prospective players on campus over the weekend. As part of that, Candle, and I believe several of the players, We're at Gamble Pavilion for the UConn Marquette basketball game on Sunday. Candle received a standing ovation at center court during one of the TV timeouts. And with him in the stands were several of those 27 players. One in particular, who we talked about previously, was allegedly on campus. And that's quarterback Caleb Osborne, who, of all the players that Jason Candle and his staff could bring in from Toledo, Osborne, to me, is the key piece. And why do I think he's the key piece? He's quarterback, dynamic with the ball. We've talked previously about what he can bring to the table on the field. And we saw that in the bowl game against Louisville. Dynamic with the ball in his hands. Getting comfortable with his receiver still. But at the high school level, state of Michigan, absolutely productive. Beyond productive. Led the nation in total yards. The entire nation in high school. Led the nation in total yards. More than 3,000 passing yards his senior year. More than 1,600 rushing yards his senior year. 4,703 total yards. 50 touchdowns. 10 on the ground. 40 in the air. Averaged 470 yards of total offense per game at the high school level. 5 touchdowns. Every single timeout. Osborne is key. And the fact that Candle was able to bring him here so effortlessly just speaks to the relationship that he has with his players, which we talked about previously and we've heard about previously through all the interviews we've done about, hey, what's Candle like? How does he run his operation? What's the culture? It's all about relationships. And seeing a player like Caleb Osborne take a visit to UConn, step away and say, this is the place, this is the staff for me and my skill set. It's promising for the future of UConn football. I put on social media what I think of Osborne and who I see in Osborne. He's 6'5". He can run. You saw it in the bowl game. But even on film, I look back and, man, I see a little bit of Vince Young in him. And his ability to move with the ball, his throwing ability. He stands tall in the pocket. The ability to deliver the ball well downfield. He's got a very strong arm. And he is so hard to bring down. Those are the traits that I see that remind me of Vince Young. So I think this is a spectacular get for UConn at the quarterback position. I think you're looking at QB1 heading into the start of camp. Now, we'll see who wins that battle because UConn is also bringing in Bo Polston, who is also on campus. So it's great to see not only transfers on campus, but also prior commits on campus, continuing to build the relationship and the rapport and developing the quarterback room already. So you got Caleb Osborne coming in, Bo Polston coming in, developing that QB room, which is so important. It's such a huge piece to your football program and your team on a year-to-year basis. And listen, I think UConn's in very good hands with Caleb Osborne and Bo Polston. We talked with Polston a few weeks ago. We'll try to get Caleb Osborne here this week. But he's absolutely dynamic. Absolutely dynamic. And is going to give defenses that UConn plays in 2026 absolute fits. If you saw the Louisville game, he just makes people miss. He's so hard to bring down in the open field. And listen, he was going against a Louisville defense who was pretty good. And he got better and better and better and better as the game went along. Only a freshman. First time playing a P4 opponent. And he got better every snap. Decision-making was better through the air, better on the ground. And he's only going to continue to develop as they go forward. And the team continued to have belief in him, even though they were down multiple scores in that fourth quarter. And he led them back with multiple touchdown drives to close to within 5 and had almost a chance to win that game. So Caleb Osborne is a huge, huge, huge piece. But that's not all. Coming off of this past weekend's visits, I think they, at the latest count, with what we're seeing from AJ Harrison putting on social media, new director of recruiting for UConn, I think they're up to 13 commits coming off this weekend. So they had 27 guys on, 13 have committed. And I think there's more to come. Osborne's only the start. Who else are they bringing? Because I've seen some comments on social media from some. Well, we're only bringing in Toledo guys. We're just the new Toledo roster. Well, who are those players that are coming in? Because, yes, those players are at Toledo. But I think it speaks to, and we're going to go in line by line. We're going to go into, hey, what other options do these players have? What's the quality of player that UConn's getting? And you'll start to see the recruiting uptick that's going to be here, even above and beyond what Coach Mora had. I'm already taking a look. So one of Osborne's key targets moving forward is going to be Zymarian Long. Receiver from the state of Florida, has been at Toledo, redshirt freshman, sat out last year with an injury. 31 offers coming out of high school. So yes, Lang is playing at Toledo, Miami, Nebraska, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Kansas, Kansas State, Indiana, Miami, Wisconsin, UCF, Purdue, BC, Duke. The list goes on and on and on. And he's supposedly a deep threat that could come in and right away establish himself in the passing game. These are the type of commits you're getting. Fred Johnson, not a Toledo guy, coming in from Louisville, went up against Toledo in the bowl game. Who'd he have offers coming out of high school? Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, Kentucky, Tennessee, Pitt. Again, a long list of Power 4 schools. How about running back? Kenji Christian. A running back. UConn's had some running backs from the state of Alabama before. Christian is from Birmingham. Originally went to Virginia Tech out of high school. Ultimately landed at Toledo. What was his offer list coming out of high school? Listen to this one. Georgia. The Bulldogs. Kirby Smart. Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin. Arkansas. Miami. In the semis. Georgia Tech. Kansas State. Kansas. Nebraska. Mississippi State. Tennessee. Long list of SEC schools there. Virginia, West Virginia, and Utah. So Christian, running back, UConn's losing a lot. They're bringing in a kid that's very, very talented. Let's keep going because this isn't the end of the list. We've got 9 players. We're only through 4. Eshawn Carter, defensive lineman, Cincinnati. Wide receiver, Jediah Willoughby, another Toledo kid, Nebraska out of high school. Isaiah Switzer, offensive lineman, Syracuse offers. Rafaela Green Nyarko, also Toledo. Here's his offer list coming out of high school. Georgia Tech, Pitt, Purdue, West Virginia, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. So all these kids, all these players, Power 4 offers. Even when Coach Moore was cooking, recruiting-wise, not everybody had Power 4 offers. Not everybody had that level of talent. Not everybody was being looked at. And are there diamonds in the rough? Of course there are. And Candle's going to identify those as well. We've talked and heard that he's able to identify key talent that maybe others have not seen or aren't on top of. But even so, Candle's going up, swinging against the big boys in college football. Power 4 level, and getting them to Toledo. What is he going to do here at UConn? You can just project it out. UConn's going to be in the best position it can possibly be, maybe ever, from a recruiting standpoint. And that's my takeaway. So, yes, a lot of players so far from Toledo. 8 of 9 over the last 2 days are coming from Toledo. You're seeing the talent. You're seeing the offers coming out of high school. You're seeing the productivity. And you're seeing what's going to be possible here. So you lost a couple offensive linemen already, 3 of them to the portal, already committed. Got 2. Switzer, Toledo. Fred Johnson, offensive line. You're losing an interior defensive lineman in Vincent Carroll Jackson. Here comes Eshawn Carter from Toledo. You're losing a tremendous amount of running backs. Here comes Kenji Christian. Huge offer list. And going back to O-line, you're also getting Green Iarco. So you got 3 kids already going to be able to come in and compete for time. So listen, and then 2 receivers, Willoughby, Lang. Players that are going to be able to come in and contribute. And then finally, you did get a defensive back as well. Safety, Jaden Price from Toledo. So 8 and 9 from Toledo, like I mentioned. They're continuing to host throughout the week. I think there's another defensive lineman from NC State. There's some other Power 4 transfers that are on campus this week. We'll be on top of it as things continue. But yes, UConn's lost 71 pieces off this year's roster. Things are very quickly starting to fill out. You're already 10%, more than 10% of the way there are backfilling. And it's going to continue, and it's going to be a fire hose, and we're going to be here to cover every single player, every single addition to this UConn football roster. On the other side, over the weekend, right before the weekend, UConn released the full staff that Jason Candle's bringing here to UConn. We will summarize after this. There's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Open the Game Time app to look at upcoming college football games and was surprised how fast it was to find great seats, like the Fenway Bowl a few weeks ago in Boston. The app is incredibly easy to use. Went from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. Loved being able to see the view from my seat before buying, so I knew exactly what I was getting. The zone deals stood out. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Seeing college football tickets starting as low as $25 made it easy to plan a game day trip. Knowing prices include all fees up front makes the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Back in on this jam-packed football Monday edition of Locked On UConn, and our final segment is going to be focused on the new staff that Jason Candle's filled out. We've talked previously about some of the key additions to the staff, such as Nunzio Campanelli on offensive coordinator, Ryan Manilak defensive coordinator. We speculated Robert Wiener based on what we've heard through the conversations we've had behind the scenes, that Weiner was going to be coming. He is coming. He's going to be the associate head coach here. And a special assistant to Jason Candle. But who else is here? Pat Cashmore comes in, replaces Doug Shearer, who's now at Virginia Tech, former UConn grad, great person, worked with him with the football program coming off the Fiesta Bowl. He landed at Virginia Tech. So Pat Cashmore comes in from Washington State to take over that unit. And they were pretty productive. And he's going to bring in some of that productivity here to UConn. Prior to Washington State, he was at South Dakota State. Had great return teams with the Jackrabbits at the FCS level. They obviously are regular candidates to win the FCS national title. So he comes with that experience. Tight ends wise, Max Ray comes in. We talked about him previously, but he spent time at Toledo, former Ohio State and Colorado offensive lineman. Kerry Dixon, we talked about, wide receiver coach, state of Florida, worked at the University of Florida, worked with the Gators, was considered a top 25 recruiter, has those Florida ties. Also spent some time with the Baltimore Ravens, working with Lamar Jackson. Nate Cole comes to UConn and will coach the running backs. Previous experience, 10 seasons at Toledo with Candle. So that rapport that they have, and they have a long list of productive running backs. John Marukian coming to UConn from Michigan. Markel Blackwell, new QB coach and co-offensive coordinator. We talked about his time previously in the SEC, A&M, Ole Miss, South Carolina. He was coaching running backs. He's a former quarterback, played at USF, played in the NFL. So some good experience there. Detroit Lewis, played at Tennessee. Will be defensive line coach. Rod Chance comes previously, was a secondary coach at Oregon State. Also served as the team's co-defensive coordinator. So he's bringing experience. Has also coached at Colorado, Oregon, Minnesota, Vanderbilt. Robert Weiner, we talked about. He was the interim head coach for the bowl game against Louisville. Jasper Jr. Collins will be assistant wide receiver coach. Here's where you start getting into the Mount Union connection. He spent time as the offensive coordinator at Mount Union last year. Darrell Eli served as the defensive coordinator for Mount Union last year. And Eli has spent 15 seasons at Mount Union. Regularly recognized as one of the best units in the nation at that level. Top 10 nationally every single year. So they're going back to the Mount Union pipeline. And then finally, Brooks Jenkins will serve as assistant D-line coach. Also spent the last time at Toledo. Also came from Mount Union previously. So that Mount Union pipeline, that culture, still continuing to show through. So that's your staff from a coaching standpoint. Separately, Zach Potter will be UConn's general manager. We talked about A.J. Harrison already, director of recruiting, player development. Colin Letty, assistant director of player personnel. Director, there's a new position. Assistant athletic director for football administration and operations, that will be Andrew Terwilliger. Spent the last 12 seasons at Toledo. And then Taylor Riddick will remain as Director of Football Operations. Daniel Mojica will remain as Football Operations Assistant. And then the last addition, Stefan Mathy will be the Director of Football Video Operations. So literally, basically cleaning house. Riddick, Mojica, only 2 returning. From the strength side, because this is key too, they're bringing in Candles, strength coach over the last decade. Brad Bikey, I believe is how you pronounce the name. Bitchy? Bikey or Bitchy? One of the two. Christian Klinek is the Associate Director of Football Strength and Conditioning, and Jabari Taylor will serve as Strength and Conditioning Intern. So that's your entire roster of staff. Long list, I know. Don't mean to bore you, but we got to talk about each one and talk about all the key additions. And it's huge because we talked previously about the staff. The key connections, Florida, Ohio, key pipelines. We've got New Jersey with Campanelli. And then you've got the cohesiveness and the understanding based on their time all together at Toledo of what they want to do together. And I think that is so important and so key that everyone's rowing in the right direction to see success. So they've been doing it at Toledo. They get it done on the recruiting trail. They have not had a losing season. Just to reiterate, no losing seasons at Toledo, Jason Candle. I think that's what you're getting here. So as recruits and commits continue to pour in, we will stay close. That's going to be it on today's show. Please stay closely tuned to our YouTube channel and anywhere else you get your podcast, because as commits continue to come in, we will be providing updates. So with that, thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On UConn. Please hit the like and subscribe button. And for a second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, hosted by Peter Bukowski, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, go Huskies!